from New England's Patriots training camp in Foxborough, Massachusetts, it's the SiriusXM Blitz. Here are your hosts, Adam Shine and Randy Cross.
Shine and Cross, SiriusXM Blitz, as we broadcast live from New England Patriots training camp in absolutely lovely Foxborough, Massachusetts, as the Patriots are going through practice, Randy, as we speak right now. We will do nothing but take telephone calls the rest of the way here on the big show at 877 NFL Kick. Everything, of course, going on in the National Football League and the New England Patriots, with the emphasis on New England as we broadcast live from Patriots training camp. Randy, before we go around the league a little bit, you know, we talked about the comparisons to start the show with the Patriots and the Jets, who arguably are the two best teams in the AFC going into this season. I think the Jets have the edge when you take a look at defense. I think the Jets do have the edge when you look at the running attack. I think the Patriots have the edge when you look at the quarterback position and the passing attack. And as much as you got to give Rex Ryan credit for his success first 2 years, obviously, coaching the Jets, Patriots have the advantage when you look at the head coach.
Yeah, I guess you've got to, and you got to go back to the conversation we had with Bill Belichick earlier about how everybody starts brand new every single year. But some of those constants are there. It's Rex and it's Bill and it's Sanchez and it's Brady. And it's, you know, go down across the board. I think Woody Johnson and his organization have done a wonderful job over the course of the last couple of years, quickly building more than a challenger for New England Patriots. They've built almost a twin to compete with them at this level, at the highest level of the AFC, the heck with the AFC East.
What's the challenge for the Jets in winning the division this year and taking the division crown away from the Patriots? Because if the Jets are ultimately going to be a Super Bowl team, I believe without question they need to win the AFC East.
Well, it's finding those one or two plays a game, finding those one or two players. And right now you don't know who they're going to be. They're going to make those key plays for you in Week 5 and in Week 9 and in Week 16. Because there's obviously from the playoff game last year, much less than, you know, a handful of games separating the two when it comes to ability. I think for the Jets is just the expanding of their passing game, scoring more points will naturally benefit them with their defensive style, will turn into more wins.
Randy, we say hello to Joe in Cincinnati, who's next here on SiriusXM NFL Radio.
Good morning, gents. I'm glad football's back.
Morning, Joe. What's cooking?
Hey, you know, I got a question for you guys. You know, I listening to the show on my drive home, and I'm hearing you talk about Chad Ochocinco and how his work ethic's always been there and how things are going to be just fine now. But, you know, it's really surprising and confusing to somebody, especially a haphazard Bengals fan like I happen to be. You know, the man himself admitted for 4 years he didn't practice hard, he didn't try hard. All of a sudden, everything's fine, and you talk about his work ethic. What gives? I mean, hate on the Bengals because we deserve it, but, you know, when Chad Johnson changed the name to Ochocinco is when he quit being a good football player.
Well, it is, I think, interesting when you talk about Chad. I think, Randy, you know, the criticism of Chad from where I've killed him in terms of work ethic has been off-season because he hasn't shown up. That, to me, is my biggest issue with Chad. Now, we haven't seen a full off-season program in New England. I would make an educated guess. Next year, he'll be in New England for the off-season program because that is the Patriot way. But, yes, if I'm a Bengal fan, sure, this conversation probably makes you sick because, you know, Chad worked when he was in Cincy, but the time that he was away from Cincy, I think drove Marvin Lewis and everybody kind of batty.
Yeah, and the experience, I think, wore Carson Palmer, wore a lot of them down, including Marvin Lewis. I think it's such a challenge to stay on the positive side. Now, did Chad take plays off? Did Chad not want to go inside? Did Chad do things like that with the Bengals? Yeah, he did. But don't confuse the having the work ethic and staying in shape and that sort of thing with the ability to sort of pass on occasion, like you saw out of him. You're not going to see those kind of things here because it won't be tolerated. The flat reality is it was tolerated in Cincinnati. He got away with that crap with that organization. And that's the difference. And Hainsworth is the same deal. He got away with the stuff he got away with in Washington.
Mm-hmm. What is Tom Brady and the offense working on the far field over there?
This is goal line passing game. They've got the balls been placed on about the 2-yard line, and they're coming out in various formations, both spread and regular, and really working on that placement, that touch. Watch how many of these passes are as far away from the defender as possible or dropped right over the top in the perfect spot.
Little play action for Brady. Perfect spot. Touchdown. Patriots.
And there's no coincidence, and this is a team that practices these type of things. And when we say roles and situations, these are the roles and situations you're going to see people in. You're going to see players in. You may not see the same receiver sets and the same receiver groupings on the plus 20 or at the 50, but when they get inside the goal line situation, they work on specific groups.
Any concern at all about Brady's age or health going into this season?
I don't think so. You know, he's shown the knee's not a factor. If you don't protect him, it could be a factor in a hurry. If the Baltimore protection from 2 years ago or the stuff last year against the Jets, if that becomes the norm and he's hit on a regular basis, then you're talking about the knees, the hands, the shoulders. Right. But the way he's able to sit back there and sort of pick his targets like he will right here in this drill, that doesn't look a whole lot different out on the Gillette Stadium field in a regular season game.
Is that 85 who just caught that pass?
That would appear to be your guy.
85, yeah. Chemistry looked good on that one. I'm fascinated to see how Chad and Tom develop a chemistry right away. Can they develop it right away, Randy, for the New England Patriots?
I think so. You know, obviously when they picked him up, and maybe even before it was actually announced, you know, you got to think there was a conversation somewhere between the East Coast and, you know, right around La Jolla or so. And Tom had a conversation with Carson Palmer asking him about the dynamics of working with Chad, developing that timing. You know, how have you dealt with him in the past? What's been the stumbling blocks? What's been the real positives? And he sort of takes that moving forward.
Sean in Salt Lake is next here on Sirius XM NFL Radio.
How's it going?
What's up, Sean?
Not a whole lot. I just had a couple questions for you since you guys are there. How are the rookie running backs looking? And how is the corners looking?
Well, not much yet. Right now it's still just the very beginnings of any kind of group-type practice. They're very happy with all their young players. The reality is with the young players this year, and Adam and I talked about it a little bit in the first couple hours, there's almost no penalty to cutting players that are in the second round, mid-second round, or whatnot below these days. So on a team like this that's got the veterans and also is fairly young, you're going to have to prove yourself right now, especially at those two positions you're talking about. Running back, 6 key players, 4 jobs. Defensive back, all you have is Pro Bowlers and top-notch people there.
Yeah, I look at the 6-for-4 as the biggest battle in training camp, especially when you factor in Kevin Falk, who's been so good and so clutch, Randy, for this organization. Think about through the years, 2004 and beyond, all those third-down catches that Kevin Falk has made for Tom Brady and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, and there's a role in a job that's hard to replace. And until the player's physical skills or mental sharpness goes away, a guy like Kevin Falk can truly play almost forever, or forever in the reference when you talk about running backs in the NFL, because he's been the exception career lengthwise.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You take a look at the rookie running backs. You know, if there was a criticism, and I'm curious to get your take on this, because I think that Belichick does an unbelievable job stockpiling draft picks for the future and knows how to run a war room. He drafts 2 young running backs, and this, you know, comes back to the conversation of the 6-for-4. You know what I would have done? I would have stayed at the end of the first round and picked Mark Ingram. I think the Saints actually got what I would view as a great player, potentially great player, would have been for the Patriots. You know, we talked about, do they have that closer, that Mariano Rivera, that Smith, that Corey Dillon. I thought Mark Ingram could have been that guy for New England. They trade out. Obviously, they get another first-round pick next year. They draft a couple young running backs. I mean, that's Bill's way. I think Ingram would have been great for New England, but he obviously wanted to go with two different guys in the draft at the running back position.
Well, you got a two-for, one in the second round, one in the third round. And remember, I just talked to Jeff Tedford about a week or two ago, and specifically about Vereen and what the Patriots were getting. And he's very much of the opinion he's a home run hitter kind of a running back. He's got very, very good speed. He kind of smiled and shrugged his shoulders and said, well, he's sort of the latest big play runner that we're putting out. He goes, it's kind of the guys that we have. And Ridley has got the potential, like we talked at the very beginning of this show, to be that finisher type. He's about the same height. They're both about 5'11". Ridley's closer to 230 and runs with a lot more power, a lot lower to the ground type running style.
All right, this is the first time I've seen Ryan Mallett throw the football live. Obviously, I saw him a lot on TV. Here he is right now throwing it. I mean, he's got an absolute hose. He's got a cannon for an arm.
Yeah, and it's a matter for a kid like this of his body catching up to his mind right now.
Sure.
Because his mind is swimming.
Yeah.
And he's going to throw passes where he's not even going to recognize that ball. He's going to look at that and say, who threw that? But he's just not in sync because he's learning so much and he's absorbing so much. His most natural moments might come when he actually has to move around a little bit and just has a chance to chunk it.
Do you think he has the ability to be a sponge and learn from Brady? I mean, the leadership was called into so much question, whether it was Michigan or then Arkansas, off-the-field issues. Does he have the ability to one day truly be a starting quarterback and a face of a franchise, not necessarily, Randy, obviously, this franchise?
I think absolutely, for my money. I would have taken serious consideration of him late one and in the second round, and not ignoring the character issues, but of counting on some maturity. And there was some blatant, almost, I hesitate to use the word, but I will anyway, profiling when it came to Ryan Mallett. The stuff that was kind of tagged onto him by a lot of people you talk to. I think he's got the physical ability, and I think he has the ability to be a sponge and the ability to adapt, which to me is the most important thing you have to have as an NFL quarterback specifically.
Nick in Pittsburgh is next here on Sirius XM NFL Radio.
Hello?
What's up, Nick? Bring it.
Hey, how's it going?
Wonderful.
Excellent. I'm actually on my way to Las Vegas right now, and so I'll be in the car for a while, and I was listening to the station, and I was,
Nick, you got to turn that radio down for me, please.
Yeah. All right, so I was listening to you guys talk about the Jets and Patriots, and like you heard, I'm from Pittsburgh, so, I was just over here thinking, where do we fit in this? You guys are talking like the Jets and the Patriots, the two top teams now.
Well, we were talking about the Jets and the Patriots in the AFC East. The Steelers don't play in the division.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to get into a comparison with Pittsburgh and Baltimore and the other teams in the AFC, Randy, I think there are 8 teams that are clearly in the month of August. Of course, I'll be proven wrong in some way, shape, or form. It's sports, it's football. There's always surprises. But I think the Jets, Patriots, Steelers, Ravens, Texans, Colts, Chiefs, and Chargers go into the season as, in my opinion, clearly the 8 best teams, better than the other 8 in the AFC.
For various reasons, if I was to make that similar list, maybe I'd only have 6. Because I don't think I'd put the Texans on it, and I don't know if I'd put the Chargers on it.
Okay.
Only from, at some point, talent doesn't matter. At some point, making my fantasy team doesn't matter. At some point in real football, you got to man up and actually do it. And people confuse mental toughness with physical toughness. I think both the Chargers and the Texans are not very mentally tough.
They got to prove it. You're right.
Yeah,
they got to prove it.
They haven't been able to live up to the expectations. They haven't been able to put talent and make it translate onto the field. And until they do, they don't deserve to be in that same category, I don't think, especially with a team like Pittsburgh that's won a couple of Super Bowls.
And Randy, I think that's a great point. I'll put them in my 8, but I respect you narrowing it down to 6 because you want to see it, and I get that completely. You want to tell me that Indy's the favorite from that perspective or Kansas City's the favorite in their respective divisions. I get that because we've seen their toughness and their character come through. You know what? Jacksonville and Houston should have been able to win that division. I mean, the Colts had a down year in basically every single phase, and Indy still won the division.
Yeah, and it's one thing that